First guest this afternoon, Mark Swilling, Distinguished Professor of Sustainable Development in the School of Public Leadership at the University of Stellenbosch, talking about a column he wrote, which appears at the moment on Daily Maverick. Well, if it appears now, it'll appear forever. That's the nature of these things. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And yeah, my department is the Center for Sustainability Transition, by the way. That's fine.
Okay, I don't think it matters much to our audience, but it matters to you, so let's get it correct. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Towards the end of your piece, you say the battle against Trumpism requires counter movements embracing diversity, sustainability, and multilateralism to oppose fear-driven authoritarian governance. And as you point out, the world is facing rising authoritarianism, economic disparities, and declining middle-class security, all of those things and more, fueling politics like Trumpist politics. How does one, what are the tactics that those counter movements use? Because is it not the tactics, the strategies, the way that those counter movements embracing diversity, sustainability, and multilateralism have operated over the last years that have driven more and more voters into the arms of people like Donald Trump? So how do they do things differently to reclaim the political high ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one needs a kind of initially a long way perspective. So, we've had swings towards more authoritarianism, back to more democratic phases, authoritarian phases, so on. There's a cyclical type of process. And a key feature of those long wave cycles is that the struggles for democracy in reaction to authoritarian tendencies has been waged on a very broad front. And in South Africa, we actually up front there globally as a very good example. So you do need the mass protests, yes. You do need the legal action by smart lawyers, yes. You do need a range of reformers within the system who start to raise objections to the way things are. And whether it's whistleblowers or internal reformers, their hand gets strengthened by the external pressures. But then you need economic crisis. So authoritarianism often eats itself. It starts to undermine the economic foundations and triggers some sort of collapse. And that's where your question becomes a very tough question, because the progressive forces, what I would call the progressive forces, have not been great in recent years in posing an attractive, desirable alternative. We've been good at critique, we've been good at opposition, but we haven't really put in place an attractive, desirable alternative. And the authoritarian populist movements claim to have an alternative. They don't actually have an alternative. They claim to have it, and it's believed. And that's the problem.
It's believed because people need to believe in something, and what they are being offered by the authoritarians, even though maybe some of them know that it's unlikely, at least it's something to hold on to. So, a lot of it becomes about how you communicate your ideas, your ideologies, your policies. And I think one of the things the left has been, that has been, and I would define myself as somebody on the left, not terribly far to the left, but definitely left of center on most issues. And I sometimes listen to myself, and I sometimes listen to other people on the left, treating people on the right as if they are morons, as if they are somehow intellectually subhuman, because they believe these things, and that's problematic.
Yeah. No, I think what the right wing calls wokeness is a reaction to that kind of judgmentalism. And I think the self-righteous judgmentalism of a lot of politically correct people on the left has had the effect of alienating a lot of people and saying, well, if you're going to judge me, I'm going to, I have nothing to lose. I'll become your worst nightmare. And I think it's unfortunate that the kind of tolerance has been lost. So I think a big lesson of Trump for progressive forces is to bring back tolerance, to bring back the capacity, which actually in South Africa we're quite good at, of engaging with those who you disagree with and working with them.
Of course, none of this has been helped by algorithms and social media and all of that stuff.
Exactly.
But to go back to part of your opening remark to me, Mark, the waves, are these not inevitable cyclical changes? Can we really flatten the wave so it stays somewhere in the center, somewhere in an arena of politics which looks at inclusion, which looks to remove disparities of all kinds, without these ups and downs, the rise of authoritarianism and authoritarianism collapsing under its own weight, and then the next cycle comes in?
I'm not so sure. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. I don't like the word human nature, but I'm not sure it works that way. If you look at the Second World War, the horrors of the Second World War, not just the tens of thousands who got killed in the trenches, but the Holocaust and all the other terrible things associated with that. And what happened afterwards? The UN Charter, the international financial institutions to kind of stabilize the global economy, welfarism, inclusion, decolonization. Those were all in reaction to a great grand horror. And then it recedes from the memory. And there's complacency that sets in, and a new generation comes up, like what we have in the White House now, who are prepared to take the world to a brink on issues like race, for example, that have over decades now been addressed in multiple complex ways. If you think of Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, 1963, 250,000 people at the Lincoln Memorial. And now his statue is there, and all over the place. There's a Martin Luther King Day. There is there's been a whole process of responding in the U.S. context to the civil rights movement to say, let's address race. That's all getting undone. And that's going to trigger another reaction. There's going to be violence. People are going to get killed in their thousands. And we're going to turn around at some point and say, we don't want this horror. Let's do something about it. And we need a shock, actually, to get our acts together, because the world's in a mess.
Professor Mark Swilling of Stellenbosch University, thank you very much indeed.